We did a lot of dry rubbing. It was very innocent back then. I'm Jack Whitehall, and this is my teenage self. What were you scared of as a teenager? Girls and boys and everything. Leaving the house. And my father, my very angry father.
Feel free to throw them on the floor.
Who was your celebrity crush as a teenager, and have you met them? My celebrity crush was Michaela Strachan from, what was that show called? The Really Wild Show. And then I went to see her in pantomime, and she played Peter Pan. And it was very confusing. What was your most used teenage slang? What slang did we use? We didn't really use slang at my school. We were more like exchanging Latin phrases. It was much more upmarket. Oh, mate, but that doesn't really count. And banter, probably.
Did you ever have Schweff?
Schweff, yeah. Schweff was big, but I don't think as a teenager. There were certainly a lot of Schweffs, but I don't know whether we knew that they were Schweffs back then. I just thought they were normal people. What were the most embarrassing trends you took part in as a teen? I shaved a line in my eyebrow. My dad was absolutely furious. What was the best piece of advice you got given as a teen? Let your eyebrow grow back and never do that again. Anything you wanted to do as a teen that you still haven't done? Get a tattoo. Really wanted to get a tattoo, and I still haven't got a tattoo.
What would you get a tattoo of?
Snitches live in ditches. Or Thug Life. What was your craziest house party experience? I once woke up and a homeless man had come into the house and was asleep on the sofa, and then I had to wake him up, and I think he'd had an accident on the sofa, so then we just were like, wow, we're going to turn the cushions over. So we just turned the cushions over and pretended like it didn't happen. That wasn't at my family home, by the way. That would have been very. No. That was at like a student house that I lived in. That was not at my mum and dad's house. What bits of pop culture were you obsessed with as a teen? I really liked the Spice Girls. The Spice World, the movie. I love that. I hope they do a second. I know that the Spice Girls are getting back together, but what we really need is Spice World 2. Get that bus out of the depot and get back on the road. The most embarrassing thing your parents did when you were a teenager just existed. Their sheer existence was embarrassing enough. What's the subject you were worst at school? I was probably worst at sport. That's not really a subject, but anything where I had to partake in any physical exercise, I was pretty terrible at. Who were your heroes as a teenager? Jamie Redknapp and Freddie Flintoff, and they remain my heroes to this day. Not as sportsmen, as broadcasters and male models for Giacomo and M&S, although he lost the M&S campaign to David Gandy, which he loves me reminding people of. What were your favourite bands as a teen? Ray-Bans. I don't think that's the bands that you required. What was your most embarrassing dating moment? I don't think there was much dating going on. There was one girl I dated, I remember. We did a lot of dry rubbing. It was very innocent back then. Did you have a nickname? Scabby. I was called Scabby because I had a scar on my head when I first went to school, and it scabbed, and then I was called Scabby for the rest of my life. Kids are great. Not as bad as a guy I know whose name is Skids. And you'd think, yes, I know why he's called Skids. You would be wrong. The reason he is called Skids is because 5 years before he arrived at the school, someone had found skid marks in his brother's underpants. So his brother was called Skids, and therefore when he then arrived at the school, he was also called Skids, even though his underpants were completely clean. That's the most brutal nickname that I've ever heard.
It's the worst version of a family name.
It's awful. Yeah, it's been handed down from generation to generation. What was your first email address? I can't give you that because it is still my email address.
Really?
Amazingly, yes. So if you want to email, as you know, don't email me, please. Don't email me. It's not, I've changed it. That was my teenage life. I'm now gonna go and cry in the toilet.